Hi everybody, welcome to Rallying the Troops, How to Recruit and Manage Volunteers for Your Outreach event. My name is Erica, and as usual I am presenting this information on behalf of the team that brings you the National Engineering Month campaign for Ontario. So it's all of these wonderful organizations you see here at the bottom that work together, OSET, Professional Engineers, Engineers Without Borders Canada, as well as the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers. So I have my trusty team, Alan and Shivangana, are really busy this time of year, but we're also really excited to launch into National Engineering Month 2016. So basically, you can go to the next slide there, please. We asked everybody back in, I guess it was September, we put out the funding applications and asked everybody, what would you like help with? And one of the things that we offered was how to recruit volunteers, and Shivangana is going to take it from here and is going to tell you we're not just going to talk about recruiting volunteers, but also some other key pieces of information. So take it away there.
Hey everyone, so as Erica said, we'll be discussing not just how to recruit volunteers, but other key aspects of having volunteers as well. One of them being how to activate your volunteers and how you manage them, and the other one also how do you recognize your volunteers and appreciate them throughout the event. You will again get a copy of these slides available in the next few days, and there will also be a video replay available for you online. So let's jump into the topic. Why do we want to even bother recruiting volunteers? Volunteers are the people who are your troops, as the title mentioned. You gain support from your volunteers to run a successful event. And as a team, you accomplish so much more if you have solid foundational support being provided to you through these volunteers. Again, great volunteers help you run great events, so definitely if you want to run a successful event, you need to invest time into your volunteers, recruiting them and training them, and appreciating them, of course. It's through your volunteers that you are able to build a strong collectivity, a strong community of people, so it's a great opportunity to leverage that and build your network as well. So what's in it for them? Why do people choose to volunteer? Any opportunity provides a volunteer with a lot of different things. Mainly, it provides them with a networking platform where they can meet like-minded people and people they can connect to on similar interests. It gives them an opportunity to build relationships with others, also their own leadership skills, because you are in charge of so many different roles and you're learning so much and you're delegating others to do things as well. It's also an opportunity for personal growth where you get to learn so much in order to improve your own interpersonal skills. Another thing that may be something more specific to a NEM-oriented event is that they get to share their perspectives with the newer generation. That's the whole purpose of National Engineering Month, is to energize and get the younger people excited about engineering and engineering technology and the professions associated with them. So all these volunteers really want to do that knowledge transfer. They want to empower these people to kind of follow their lead and follow their footsteps and see how exciting engineering and engineering technology can be. And of course, all of this leads to a great amount of fun. So an opportunity like this is a great way for a person to enjoy themselves and connect with others and just grow and learn and have fun at the same time. Another thing to do here, what other things that your specific event can provide to people. It's nice to know these things so that if someone ever asks you, hey, what's in it for me, you can tell them that, hey, our event can provide you all these different things. Maybe you'd be interested. So definitely it's a great exercise to think from the perspective of the volunteers so you know who you're selling your event to. So here's an Engineers Without Borders specific success story. So Engineers Without Borders is a National Engineering Month partner, and they support a lot throughout the engineering month, National Engineering Month. So EWB has 39 chapters across the country with thousands and thousands of members. A lot of times it can be really hard to mobilize all these volunteers because usually you end up only hearing from 20 or 30 of the same people. So last year around the federal elections, Engineers Without Borders started a campaign called Politics Aside. It was a mainly online event that was targeted towards the MPs that are running for the federal elections and are about to become a part of the Ottawa team. They wanted to basically empower these MPs to keep politics aside and start a discussion about international development and how to end poverty on a systemic level in Canada and abroad. So this is a great example of how you can create action on a larger scale beyond the handful of volunteers that approach you. So they were able to trigger about 20,000 online actions, and this included tweeting, Facebooking, and offline actions such as calling and meeting with your MPs to talk about global poverty. This was really powerful because they were able to utilize their existing network to accomplish such a powerful discussion, start a conversation basically. They were able to empower all of their chapter members to start the conversation. So this shows how you can mobilize this huge network of volunteers if you prepare yourself well, if you're providing them with the right information. And once you do that, you can trust your volunteers to basically cause this amazing ripple effect that can lead to such a powerful outcome. So that was a nice EWB story that I thought would bring some perspective here. So this brings us to how do you go about finding new volunteers? One of the first things you can do is tap into your circle of influence, and this is your immediate circle of influence. You don't need to go anywhere too far to look for volunteers, and you can begin with your friends and family, your classmates, co-workers, even former co-workers you're in touch with, your neighbors, and also other community members such as people you interact with maybe in a religious place or clubs, sporting teams, etc. So you don't need to go too far to start looking for volunteers because once you ask, people will definitely be willing to help. And this brings us to the point where you need to use your existing network. One of the things you can also do is just give a quick shout out on your Facebook page. You can see a post here from Rose. She wanted more volunteers for her Inspire team. They do a lot of events within the Girl Guide community. So what she did was she just reached out to her immediate friend circle on Facebook, and she put up a simple post, and she also added a little motivation for the volunteers. She said that there will be free t-shirts available, so you could do something like that, give them a reason to volunteer. And yeah, so start with your immediate network. That is a great place to begin, and all you need to do is ask for help, and Erica will elaborate more on this point.
Sure. Thanks, Shivangana. So I wanted to share a little bit of a story. Actually, speaking of Rose, we were working to stock her roster of volunteers this year, and it was on Wednesday that I realized she wanted to get everybody signed up by Sunday. So we were sort of last minute, a little bit panicking because we had 30 different Girl Guide groups that were signed up and wanted volunteers, and we thought, we really don't want to leave these people hanging. How can we make this happen? And this is where I stumbled upon, this sort of experiment that I ran myself to say even better than a broadcast type ask is a personal ask. And what this looked like specifically was me writing a whole bunch of messages on Facebook to my own network, which I graduated from engineering, so a lot of my friends and contacts are engineering type people, to say, can you help? That is, right there. Can you help? Something specific. We've got an example here. I need to put together kits for the event tomorrow. Can you spare an hour? So there we go. We've got 2 pieces of information there. It's got to be by tomorrow, and it is an hour, and I would be helping put together kits. So I guess really 3 pieces there. That is really good to know. You want to be specific about the time commitment involved. No one's going to write you a blank check to their bank account, so why would they do something different with their time? You know, their time is important, it's valuable, and if you ask them specifically, it makes them feel special, it makes them feel needed, and if you, and also identifying like, hey, I think you'd be great for this, I think you'd really enjoy this. Another thing that happens when you post things personally is people see how invested you are. So here's an example. This is an actual screen capture of something I sent to an old friend of mine, someone I went to school with. I said, can you help? We need some volunteers in Ottawa. I'm in Waterloo. You know, they're in Ottawa. I feel helpless from here, but here's my ask. Here's a link for more details. So, you know, some people like to know all the information up front. Some people just want the bare bones, so I sort of gave the best of both worlds here. I think you would be an awesome facilitator. So vote of confidence, right? I think that that's important. Obviously, your own personality will dictate the way that you go about doing this, but I think giving someone a vote of confidence to say, you could totally do this, you would be great at this. I think people like to hear that, and all the work is done for you. They mail you the materials, the training's online, you just show up and run the show. Would you consider doing this? And here's a deadline. Here's another key piece, because people will put off saying yes unless you sort of activate them and create a sense of urgency and excitement. And in this case, I wasn't artificially creating it. We really did need everybody to sign up by this past Sunday. So I added a little bit of a personal sign off here, and you know, there's the response. Crazy contraptions? Sounds fun? Sure. Boom, done. It really was that easy. I think I sent 6 or 7 messages and I got 3 people to sign up, and one couldn't come, but she sent it to her entire network at work. So just demonstrates the power of the can you help, a specific example. You want to mix up the sending out, putting it on a website or putting it on an e-blast or those sort of broadcast type asks versus the personal ask. You really want to do a little bit of both, or better yet, get your network to start sending personal asks. I think that's a really important distinction. Someone who passes the word on to other people versus someone who steps up themselves. You need both.
All right, thank you, Erica. So she talked about the personal side, but how do you broaden your search beyond the personal network? If you've exhausted that, what can you do otherwise? So one of the few things you can do is place an ad in your community newspaper, post a request at a local high school, and leverage your online social media networks as much as you can. So you can send out tweets. So here you can see Inspire needed some volunteers in Ottawa, so they tweeted that, and NEM Ontario was able to retweet that. So again, exhausting social media networks as much as you can definitely help. So one of the things to remember is that people are more likely to say yes if they know what they're saying yes to. So make sure that when you are sharing the information with others, don't just simply list that, hey, you need help. Maybe talk more about the duties involved in the position, the amount of time that they'd like to commit, and other information when you are posting on social networks or through volunteer boards, because at the end of the day, people are volunteering their own personal time to help you out, so you need to let them know how much time would be required of them and how much effort as well. So how do you go about preparing your volunteers? So once you're done recruiting them, how do you train them well enough so that you have a successful event in front of you? So one of the first things you can do is have a great onboarding session. This is important so that the volunteers feel comfortable and prepared and confident in carrying out the roles that you've assigned to them. Make sure that in the beginning you're outlining how important volunteers are to your event. Make sure that you highlight to them their impact, because usually volunteers get caught up in very small roles. Maybe they're taking care of things in the background, or maybe they're just working on the operations or logistical side, that they don't realize what the event is trying to accomplish as a whole. So make sure you talk about this in the beginning. Let them know what the event is trying to accomplish. Let them know how many people they will be impacting and in what ways, and this will really help really help empower them and feel better about what they're doing. Again, this is a great time for you to energize and inspire volunteers so that they can pass this energy onto the audience on the day of the event, because they will be working on the front lines, maybe even in the back. So make sure that you've transferred enough energy into them that they can seep out to the people who will be attending the event. Another thing to remember is to delegate and not dictate. You need to get to know your volunteers, and maybe this might not be as easy to do if you have a lot of people that are working for you. But you need to get to them enough so that you can exert control to a certain point and that you can let them go to carry out tasks effectively after that point. You need to have faith in your volunteers to do what you've asked them to do. Don't micromanage. Definitely be there to support them, but don't get too fussy about what they are doing or not doing. Don't overload them with information, but offer constant support and motivation. Establish a buddy system. Pair them with an experienced volunteer so they may ask them questions or turn to them for support. Again, this ties in with our previous point, but help them understand the bigger goals of the event and the campaign so that they can help contribute to ideas as well and follow instructions at the same time. They're not there to completely change how the event is run, but maybe they could offer small suggestions or contributions that could help tweak up your event and improve it on an aesthetic level maybe, or just an overall level, and just improve it slightly more than what you would have had initially without their input. When we're talking about preparing volunteers, another thing you need to do is be clear and upfront about volunteers' responsibilities. Don't just tell them to go do their task without giving them any information about what the task entailed. Maybe let them shadow you for a bit. If several steps are required in that specific task that they have to do, show them how to do it so that they're aware of all the little things that are involved in the process, and so that they don't miss out on anything important. So definitely guide them in the beginning and then trust them enough to carry it out later on. Another thing you can do to prepare your volunteers is to prepare a list of attendee FAQs. You can list out all the questions that could be asked by attendees and any possible solutions you can provide. Providing this list to your volunteers can help them best answer questions for these attendees. This is very, very useful if your event is on a larger scale and has external attendees coming in or is taking place at an unfamiliar location. I had a personal experience with this where I had to go man a booth for a club I was volunteering for Fair Trade, for the Fair Trade Network in my school, and literally did not know anything about the position because I signed up for it last moment. But one great thing that they were able to do for me was provide me with a sheet with a bunch of questions that people might ask me about the Fair Trade certification, what our school is doing to further the cause, and they gave me specific answers I could talk about and discuss. So they handed me that 10 minutes before. I read over it, and this way I was able to prepare for any questions that might be thrown at me, and 70% of the questions asked were directly from the list that they provided me, so that was a fantastic resource. And they also had written who I can approach for any further questions that people may have, any in-depth questions. So they gave me some sources of contact that I could guide the other people to if they had any more concerns. So that's definitely a great thing you can do for your volunteers to help them feel more prepared. So now is recognizing your volunteers. And how do you recognize your volunteers? Volunteer recognition is very important and is an ongoing process. And it is something that you just don't do at the end of the event, but it is something you can do even in the beginning and during the event to empower your volunteers, because again, they are your troops, they are people working in the front line and in the back end, so you need to make sure that you are recognizing their efforts. So how do you recognize the efforts before the event? Well, again, this is something we've talked about a few times already in the presentation, but show them the big picture of what they are a part of. You can talk about the scale of National Engineering Month and how they are a part of one of more than 300 events and actually more than that, that will be taking place all over Ontario to inspire people about the engineering and engineering technology profession. There will actually be a webinar we will be doing on 1st of March, and that is the NEM Kickoff webinar. And this webinar will be talking about what is happening in NEM 2016 as a whole across Ontario. So you will get rallied up about the event, and not everyone can attend the webinar, but once the webinar is over, you can forward the link to volunteers so that they can watch it and get rallied up and get excited about what NEM is and see how they fit into the bigger picture. So Erica will talk more about what you can do during the event to recognize your volunteers.
Great, thanks, Shubhangana. So I think something that sounds really obvious, but it can be pretty hectic on the day. It can be easy to forget that people need to be well hydrated. They need to eat. So if hopefully you figured that out, maybe food is part of your event, or you need to give them some time to go get their own food, or advise them to bring food. That is really important to check in with them, see how they're doing. Do they look overwhelmed? Do they look swamped? Do they look bored? Make sure that they're having a good time. You obviously don't need to be there every 5 minutes, but make sure that you sort of keep tabs on them, because they are a really important part of the success of your event. So that is one thing that you can do to sort of take care of your volunteers. Help let them switch up, and definitely offer to give them breaks or to switch each other off, because that often happens, that one person gets stuck doing a really long, very long shift. After the event, this is sort of my favorite part. Help them understand what their impact was. Again, it might seem obvious. It's often very hectic on the day, we know, but as things are winding down, maybe you're taking an inventory in your head of, oh, that went well, that didn't go so well, oh, what about that? Like, how did that work? You're sort of taking stock in your head. Take the time to share some of that with your volunteers, and definitely lead with the positive whenever you can. Make sure, this was great, this was fantastic, look at what they said. You're going to have the participant surveys to look at, so that is a great opportunity to reflect and think about, like, hey, look how well that landed, and isn't it funny that, most of the participants said this. Like, give them an opportunity to give their perspective as well, because I think that that's something that people will really appreciate. They've got fresh eyes as someone that hasn't maybe been involved for a long time, and they can contribute some valuable perspectives or maybe some other ideas on what you could try differently next time. We encourage you to be really open about what didn't go well. No one's trying to mess up, but it does happen sometimes. Sometimes things don't go according to plan, so you end up learning something instead of accomplishing what you thought you were going to do. That is totally great too. We do encourage you to send a follow-up email or perhaps a note. You might have a little something that you can give out to people. We're absolutely going to do our best to send you some merchandise that we think people will want. So that's fantastic for, giving someone a little token of recognition. However, there's some really well-established data that says that people don't respond as much to rewards, even in the workplace. For example, higher compensation. They would prefer to be appreciated. They would prefer to be told, hey, when you did that, that really made a difference. That I could see how well the kids were responding when you started talking about X, Y, Z. I know, it depends on your personality. Maybe some people are very comfortable giving this type of feedback. Others might feel a little bit shy. Don't be shy. Turn up the sun and shine on your volunteers, because this is when you're getting the chance to show them how much you appreciate them, how they're helping you accomplish what you set out to do. And we certainly are able to help you do that, give some recognition to your volunteers. If you have some exceptional stories that you want to share, please do send them our way. You can email us and we can share those on the blog and on our social media. We want to create a community of people who recognize each other and appreciate each other. You can think of this as an investment in the future of not only your National Engineering Month event, if you decide you want to do this again next year and you want to call on the same people again, but also in your community, as Shubhangana mentioned, year-round. These are the types of people, they have a good experience once, they will keep coming back and they will keep doing more and more things for you and taking on greater and greater responsibility. I do believe personally that outreach is a gateway to other things, to deeper involvement. For example, the way that I got involved with Engineers Without Borders was I volunteered for a Water for the World workshop way back in, my gosh, it was the early 2000s. And yeah, look at me now. I've come a lot farther in my involvement and the initiative and leadership that I've taken within the organization. So treat your outreach volunteers well, and great things will happen. They will mature into other types of involvement as well.
Okay, so connecting volunteer engagement to aspects on your scorecard. So one of the sections under the Advanced tab asks you to report how many volunteers you were able to engage, just so we know and we get a perspective of how many people you were able to leverage to run your event successfully. Now, this can include a number of areas where people would have helped you out, and maybe with research, budgeting, venue planning, promotion before the event, or execution on the day of the event, and maybe even tear down at the end of the event. So just by providing the number, you can get a score of 5 if you just provide us with the number of volunteers you engaged. If you do not provide any data, you get a 0, so definitely an easy 5 marks, because you will for sure engage some amount of volunteers in your event. Really hope you do. So that's one of the aspects. The other thing is the collaboration scoring. And in the so basically you need to tell us how many, you don't need to give us a number, but if you engaged any certain number of external organizations, and that you collaborated with them, maybe through co-delivery, promotion, supplying volunteers or speakers, then you can give 2 points for each of the organizations you collaborated with, up to a maximum of 10. So this could, they could have collaborated with you in a number of ways. Maybe that's through finding or donating venue space. Maybe you were able to reach out to a school to lend them to you their school grounds, maybe after hours, coordinating or buying supplies for the event, designing or delivering the event content, promoting the event, recruiting or providing volunteers, judges, or speakers, or even helping out with logistics on the day of the event, such as parking, directions, feedback forms, giveaways, answering questions, etc. So let us know how many external organizations you collaborated with. For each of the organizations you did that with, you can give yourself 2 points again, up to a maximum of 10. So this kind of goes beyond just the volunteering realm. It goes beyond that, and we just want to encourage you to connect with other organizations doing the same things, so that you can yourself extend your personal network, so that in the future you're able to collaborate better and run more successful events through the power of networking. So I think that brings us to the end of the webinar.
Great.
Erica?
Yeah, I'll just say that we are really glad that you came out for this week's webinar. This was a little bit of an experiment. We have not run one on volunteer management before, so we'd be especially interested to hear your feedback. Either you can give it to us now if you're listening live, if you're with us on the call now, or through any of our emails or social media channels. Next week, I want to really encourage you to tune in for the Outreach Strategies for Diversity. That's a week from today on the 24th of February, or there'll be a replay available if you're not listening to this live. We're going to have a special guest speaker. It's the first time we've tried something like this, but we're going to have someone who's a social psychology researcher who's been studying STEM fields in engineering and has some insights to share with us on what makes diversity happen or what makes it not happen, and how we can apply those insights directly to what we're doing as far as planning and delivering our outreach events. So it's going to be really great. I encourage you to check it out, and you can again share your feedback and thoughts, pass on the video replay to your team, and see how you can build these things into your plans. The kickoff webinar, as Shivangana mentioned, is on March 1st, coincides with the beginning of the official kickoff of the campaign. It's going to be a Tuesday, so you can get an overview, and we're just really excited to provide everybody with this understanding of it's not just you in your chapter or your event or your community. It's actually a big thing. We're starting to really create this groundswell of events, and we've got more than 10 things happening for every day in March. That's a big deal. You know, it was not like that just a couple years ago. This is something that we've built through, coincidentally, the help of volunteers. So you are all a part of this, and you're all deserving of a ton of recognition and appreciation for everything that you do. So thank you for